Welcome to the Limitless Legal Nurse Consulting Podcast. I'm your host, Anna Gray. The best thing about being a nurse and entrepreneur over the last 25 years are the relationships I've developed and the people I've met. As a legal nurse consultant, I wanted you to hear from those amazing people in the legal and healthcare communities. I wanted you to hear who they are and to celebrate them with me. Get ready to be inspired, informed, and empowered. Let's dive into the Limitless Legal Nurse Consulting Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to the Limitless Legal Nurse Consulting Podcast. I'm really excited for my guest today, Jaimee. I have only seen Jaimee share, her event, and you guys probably will talk more about that, but I really want to get to know Jaimee. I want to get to know her story. So Jaimee, thank you so much for being here and willing to share your story. And I am really looking forward to getting to know you.
Anna, I am so excited to be here. I have been looking forward to meeting you and to spending some time with you. And I cannot wait to share with viewers a little bit about my background and just some general excitement all over for what we do as nurses every single day.
Yeah. I'm excited to get into this because obviously, we're nurses and this is one great thing I love about this podcast is that we all have most likely one similarity. I mean, I have had other specialties or non-nurses on here, but mostly we're nurses. So we have this thing in common, but we all have different stories. So
we do.
And that's what's so fascinating to me. And apparently it's fascinating to other people because people are listening and they want to hear your story. So
that's great.
Yeah. Okay. So share with us a little bit about where you are coming from right now. Where
I live? All right.
Yeah.
I am in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. So if you're familiar, I can't do it on the video very well. Yeah. It's probably like this, right? A hand. And then the Upper Peninsula fits right over here. Yep. And so we are right there.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So you still have to go about 5 or 6 hours north to hit the tip of Michigan. But we're right at the top, right headed over to Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. So our sister city is Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario.
Wow.
We live in a rural community. There are about 13,000 people here. So a rural location. It's beautiful for anyone that wants to travel this way. Yeah. Summertime is the best unless you like snowmobiling or hockey.
Yeah. Well, I do like that.
Yeah.
I have been to Michigan, and that is the only reason I've been there is because of hockey. So
hockey. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've been, I couldn't even tell you how far north I've been, but I can appreciate it. It is beautiful there. When I've gone, it was beautiful there. So
it is. We call it God's country for a reason.
I bet.
Yeah. We don't have, we do have bugs, but not like you do in other places.
Right. So the summers aren't so bad.
Oh, the summers are beautiful here. The summers are beautiful. Temperatures run, 70s to 80s and nice breezes off Lake Superior.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Oh,
yeah.
Like a little a secret getaway up there.
It is.
Not your typical vacation area, right?
It is not. You have to like the wilderness just a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So have you always been up there? Have you always lived up there?
No, I started my life out in a town called Grand Haven that is along Lake Michigan and still in Michigan. And my parents moved us about 10 minutes away to Spring Lake and then moved back to Grand Haven. And then I went off to college. I moved to Traverse City, Michigan. I spent a little time in Kalamazoo, Grand Rapids, and then found my way to Lake Superior State University, which is here in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. And I also teach there now. So I do some work there. And from there, I took an internship in cardiovascular surgery out at Mayo. And I worked in Rochester for a very brief period of time before I came back, finished my degree, and got routed into rural nursing.
Wow.
A passion I did not know that I had.
Uh-huh.
And yes, and absolutely love it. Would not change it for the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. So then your whole nursing career was in rural nursing? Is
My
that what?
nursing career is in rural nursing. It is
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah. And
Okay.
yeah,
Can you expand a little bit on rural nursing? Because I grew up in San Diego. I live in LA. It is the furthest thing from rural nursing. So for those of us who are, I guess, city folk,
Mhm.
um, can you expand on obviously there are differences, but what would be the things that stand out to someone like me on
I
rural?
Yeah, I think the things that stand out on rural nursing is the flexibility that nurses need to have and
Mm,
the ability to be able to push boundaries without exceeding the scopes of standards and practice.
right.
We work with minimal resources and
Mhm.
we have to really gain a skill set in many areas. So when I started into practice, this will date me just a little bit. We were also involved in respiratory care, ventilator management. Our ICUs are not like they are now. We did everything at the bedside, inserting our lines and all of that. My younger years, I spent on emergency transport that could be working in a medical unit and then spending time in ICU and ER. And then the next thing you know, we have a critical case that needs to be shipped out, and there I go. So back on the back of an ambulance, taking critical patients in transport, or these are the fun days. We live in an area where we have the Mackinac Straits. So the Straits of Mackinac,
Okay.
you can't fly over those without
Mm,
a twin engine. And so we would actually take a plane and the pilot would remove the back seats
mhm.
and we would jump on that little, we call them puddle jumpers, and
Yeah.
we would jump on that plane with him and we would get our patients to where they needed to go because oftentimes our more urban centers couldn't get their helicopters over the
Oh, I
straits
see.
or things like that. So there is a difference in that we have to know a lot of skills. We
Mhm.
see a lot of things in rural communities. So where nurses may graduate, move on to a more urban center. They get involved in neurology, for example, and they become a medical neurological nurse. And where I may have that, along with congestive heart
Sure.
failure,
Sure.
along with other pulmonary conditions, along with
Mhm.
diabetes care, along with any other type of
Mhm.
critical situation. So we just have a variety of things that we have to know, be ready to do.
Right.
So a story that somewhat tells what we do. I was visiting my husband's aunt about an hour from here in even
Mhm.
a smaller area. And while we were visiting in the little medical unit that they had, all of a sudden, all of the nurses disappeared. There was a caregiver in the unit, but all the nurses went. And when I asked, they had had a large motor vehicle trauma
Mm.
that came into the emergency room. So they had to very quickly shift their mindset to go handle an emergency
Mhm.
and stabilize all those patients for transport,
Mm.
and then
Mhm.
come back and care for those in their
Hmm.
facility. So just
Yeah.
a different type of care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and that makes total sense. So gaining that knowledge and training, was it just like on the job training, or did you go through any sort of rural nursing curriculum, or was it, you had a mentor? What did that look like for you? How did you learn to
How did I
become that?
learn?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, I graduated and I took a job. I just took my first job. And
Right,
I really
right.
wondered, I really thought, okay, I will do this for a couple of years and then I'm moving on to
Yeah,
something bigger, something
sure.
better. And what I found was that I couldn't find anything bigger and
Oh,
better. I was involved in everything.
Yeah.
I was working with surgeons. I was working with physicians. I was helping to do things that I never would have seen or done
Sure.
anywhere else. And so I just grew in the job. But just like all settings, all standards of care, all standards of practice, we have to stay current. We have to earn our certifications. We have to stay on top of current practices by attending educational events, going back to school. So, from that perspective, you and I were probably learning the same things,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
going through our trauma certification courses, our ACLS courses,
Sure.
when I worked in OB and labor and delivery, all of those courses through A1, the standards are the same.
Sure.
It's just a different setting that they're applied in.
Right. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, that
Right.
makes sense. So did you ever go into, I mean, you clearly when you're working with a unofficial expanded scope, let's say, right? Unofficial expanded scope. You are technically in a leadership role because you're making decisions that, a standard staff nurse wouldn't make. But did you ever go into leadership as
I did.
well? Okay.
I
So
did.
what kind of leadership did you go into?
So I moved out of bedside nursing
Okay.
I moved into renal dialysis first
Okay.
and took on a leadership role there. So I became a manager in that unit.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was recruited from there into case management, home health and hospice. And so that is a unique opportunity in rural settings as well.
Yeah.
Different than in more urban settings. But it, was still an experience. And then from there, I was recruited back into the hospital setting as a medical surgical nursing director. And I accepted that role. And I managed a 45-bed unit. We had 107 staff. And so I did that for 5 years. And in year 5, I was recruited over into education, nursing education. And so I did both for a while. I actually did both for a while and remain clinically competent teaching clinicals now in a variety of courses with a lot of background. And I teach didactic as well as clinical, develop curriculum, policy oversight in that role as well. So I have a pretty broad management background as well. And my degree, my advanced degree is in management and leadership.
Right. Because I always ask that question, or I typically ask that question, because I think a lot of us that have gone down into this medical legal side of things typically have some sort of management history. Either it was a charge position or it was something that was more than that. Something.
I agree.
Because
I agree.
I don't know if we're gluttons for punishment, or we just are we just like to continue to expand our knowledge, right? We're knowledge seekers. I typically, everyone I meet on here are that we're all knowledge seekers, and I think that's where we kind of land in this role, just by interviewing 50 something odd people in this environment.
I think we want to make. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
I think we also have a desire to make change. We can see the healthcare system from a whole different lens when we serve in that role. So that passion for how do we improve patient care? How do we improve staff care? Burnout's a real issue, and that burnout leads to poor patient outcomes as well. So I think that background helps us, especially in case review. Because it's not necessarily about one little tiny piece of that case. There's an impact that the entire system has on the outcome.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think that's a really good point. I think that it is more than just our 1 to 5 patients. It is this overview of patient safety and staff safety and kind of the big picture. Where not everybody looks at the big picture. So I love the fact that you said that, because I do think that that's kind of a consistent view for most of us. So,
Right.
yeah, that's a very good point. So when you, in all of your journey, through rural nursing and education and management, was there something that you look back at that you just were like, that I really, really loved that? I mean, because there are times in my career that I can say I really, really love that, even though I moved on, or, we've all had these long journeys. What was that for you? What kind of things did you go back? Would you go back and say, that was such a great time in my life. I really enjoyed doing those things. If I were to do it over again, I would do more of that, or if that even exists for you.
Sure. I think if there was a way, if I could go back and be where I am right now, that would be perfect. But you can't do that.
Yeah.
You just can't do that. What gets you to now is all of that history and all of those experiences and what you learn and the experience that you've gained. It would be hard for me to go back. I think right now I'm serving my passion. Right now is where I'm supposed to be.
Yep.
I think all of those things starting way back in nursing school. So when I started nursing school, just like everyone else, I really didn't know. I mean, I came from a family of nurses, but you don't really know what it entails. And I had a great mentor. The dean of our program took me under her wing. She saw something that I didn't know I had, and that was in the area of leadership. And so I really quickly understood that I ultimately would serve patients by positively impacting the care, the environments, and the quality that they were receiving. But I didn't know what that meant yet. I just knew that I was happier when I was problem solving how to make things better.
Right.
Not necessarily, putting in that I can do that, probably blindfolded like everybody else, but that wasn't, it was fun. And I have favorite skills and I have favorite patients that I remember. But I think it was that drive that I knew every role I had, I met a lot of frustration because I could see things weren't working the way they were supposed to be. And that has led me to where I'm at today. And my one passion out of all of this is the conference. It's the Attorneys Resource Conference. That's where I feel like I'm bubbling with so much excitement and just driven to utilize that venue to continue to make positive change at a whole different level. So I think that's where I'm at with that. I can't go back.
No, that's a perfect answer, because it does. It's like all of those layers all of those favorite layers or unfavorite layers have created where you're at now. So it is clearly a collaboration of all of that.
It is.
To put you in the position that you're in right now. So before we talk about the conference, I want to hear a little bit more about how you got into the medical legal side. How did that start for you? What did that look like?
I don't know if it's fair to say I don't know. I was led here.
Okay. No, that's fair.
I really think that beginning early on with seeing how things can be broken and having the courage to learn how to advocate and to step out of that comfortableness and say, wait a minute, we have something that needs to be done. My mind takes me back to, I think I've been on this pathway all along. I just didn't know what to call it.
Okay.
I am policy driven. I love procedure. I love safety. I love helping to create very positive work environments that promote that safety. And early on, I had a patient situation that did not end well. It wasn't my patient. It was a patient that ended up dying as the result of multiple system errors. I happened to be the last nurse in the whole line of care that caught the issue. And when I walked in and I could see how that patient was, I could see the emotion in the family, getting the surgeon there right away. And then the end result, when I knew I would be called to testify because she was in my care for a total of about 5 minutes.
Right.
And, but I'm the one that discovered it. And,
Mm-hmm.
um, I don't know, at that point, I knew that there was something more that we could do. And I
Mm-hmm.
also learned at that point that attorneys are not meant to be feared. They
Mm-hmm.
might they might want to be. For all the attorneys that are watching this, they might want to be feared, right? They might not want somebody to think that
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
really care in certain
Yeah.
situations. But
Yeah.
from a practice perspective, in going through that whole process, I realized that I need to understand the legal side of what I do.
I see.
I knew that I would not be on the hot seat. I knew that I would be
Mm-hmm.
called to
Mm-hmm.
testify against one of my own or maybe several.
Mm-hmm.
And I understood in that process that the people that had to take the lead on that were in the legal realm. So I needed to understand what they did. And I just began to fall in love with pieces of it. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and then I began to understand that if I really want to make change in my environment, I have to figure out how to create a bridge, how to partner with
Mm-hmm.
that as a nurse,
Mm-hmm.
how to help educate. And my pathway just continued. I had a few more opportunities to testify in different things that had
Mm-hmm.
nothing to do
Mm-hmm.
with me.
Sure.
Nothing to do with me, but it put me there and seeing the process and
Mm-hmm.
understanding how I could help educate
Mm-hmm.
people to understand what we're thinking, those scopes and standards, and it just went from there.
Right.
When I got called into nursing education, I opened my business a few years later in the area actually of uh, environment improvement, culture.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm a mediator. I didn't share that, but I'm a mediator. I believe in resolving conflict at the lowest
Mm-hmm.
level and helping people do that because that also positively impacts outcomes for everyone. And so I began teaching. I run workshops on conflict management.
Mm.
And then that just led me to the next step and to the next
Mm-hmm.
step. And the next thing
Mm-hmm.
you know, I'm like, geez, I'm probably ready to
Mm-hmm.
engage in this type of work. But as
Mm-hmm.
all nurses do,
Mm-hmm.
oh no, I have to go to school. I have
Right.
to, yeah, all
Yeah.
nurses, right? More and more
Yeah.
education. And I landed myself in an amazing program at Brighton College. And in
Mm-hmm.
that program, I was the only one in my cohort, me, myself, that was it,
Mm-hmm.
working side by side in each class with physician attorneys and nurse attorneys. So
Mm-hmm.
I had their attention one on one, and
Oh.
I
Yeah.
continued to grow. I loved it. And
Mm-hmm.
I I absolutely love this line of
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
Um,
So I love the fact that you share that. What leads me to my next question is that because you are still teaching and you're in
mhm.
education role, how does the and the fact that you experienced something as a nurse where you felt like you needed to understand the legal side of it, did that carry over into your teaching, let's just say, young nurses? How did you start to teach young nurses those things? I'm trying to come up with the question that is, how do we teach young nurses that are not going
Right,
into the legal side of things, but understanding that legal side? Is there
right.
still, an ability? Because I don't think that it's taught in nursing school,
It is not. It's
from what I
actually
remember
sad.
many years ago.
The curriculum really doesn't have room for it. It
Yeah,
could be an elective, and I think it would be a really positive elective. But as you know, nursing school is very tough and
yeah,
rigid, and it's so jam packed with everything that there's not always a lot of room
sure.
to take those extra electives.
Yeah.
So integration is what I call it.
Mhm.
Have I integrated legal concepts into my education? I have. at every level. So I have the ability to teach in every level. So I can teach entry level, junior level, and senior level, and I've taught all of them. Every course that I have, I integrate legal components, whether it's through helping them learn terminology, walking them as they grow a little bit in nursing and actually get to see things, helping them walk through case studies. When I'm in clinical with them, I actually make assignments for them, identify those issues, ethical, legal, and moral, and bring all of those issues with you to post-conference. And so if we're in the thick of it, I walk them through at that moment. But a lot of times nursing students are observing what other nurses are doing. And they're questioning, we weren't taught that way. Why? Or a nurse walks by and says, do as I say, not as I do. And they're showing them something that is not accurate. And it gives me the chance then to take them in a post-conference situation where we have time to dissect it and explore it to help them understand what they're feeling about it, get over the anxiety. You know, they're all afraid when they hear the word legal, and because it equates to license. And so let them work through those feelings and then help walk them through how they can change that behavior in their own practice so they don't make those same mistakes. So yes, it is, I integrate it, and I'm pretty certain our other faculty do as well, to their level of ability too. And then I bring things to campus. So one of the things that LinkedIn has been amazing for is the making of connections where I can reach out and say, hey, we have a hot topic going on right now, and I have a group of nursing students that really would love to learn. Would you be willing to pop in on Zoom for us in one of our technology classrooms and have a discussion or give a presentation? One example is Redonda Vaught, having the opportunity to meet her through AALMC. And then bring her to the classroom was just an amazing. We packed that room and be able to listen to her and then be able to debrief the students once that webinar was over and walk them through that whole case scenario. And what would you do? And, you know, the fun part is, oh, we would never do that. And then you follow up with a question and they immediately make the same or similar mistake. And you're able to call them out in a safe place to say, okay, you know, we just walked through it and now let's backtrack and find out why that would be the wrong decision. So we find a way here, at least at our school, to integrate those things.
I think that that's such a gift to, you know, I say this too, because it's been a very long time since I went to nursing school, but I have a daughter who's starting nursing school.
Oh, so, I have one in nursing school right now. So I'm going to you'll feel my pain.
So I, you know, some of my questions I ask for selfish reasons as well, because, you know, I'm trying to help her navigate those rocky waters, you know, and also I've seen a lot of through COVID, you know, you see a lot of nurses leave the profession. Number one, COVID just was COVID. And two, I think that the medical legal side of things has terrified a lot of nurses in that they don't want to risk, you know, anything. And so I think it's a gift to be able to give students early on the conversation about it and to discuss, you know, what would you do in this situation? Or like you said, they've seen situations where their preceptor is doing something that is not, you know, that is a shortcut. And being able to discuss that, I think, is very valuable. And I think that that's something that I personally look forward to having those conversations with my daughter, because she's moving back home with me to go to nursing school. So, you know, she's got an in-home tutor, but having those conversations, I think, is really important. I wish every nursing student does. And I don't know if they do, but I find that it's a gift that you've been able to give them.
I do teach them. There are two primary things that I do teach them, and whether they take advantage of it or not is totally up to them. But based on my journey through nursing, very
Mm-hmm.
early on, I realized I needed to have a counselor on call.
Mm-hmm.
There was no debriefing for us early on in my career. That's relatively new. The debriefing, the importance of psyche. And so early on, I realized, geez, there are some pretty tough things that I have to deal with here
Yep.
that I'm already showing some signs that it's affecting me. And so I kept a counselor on call because they're licensed for confidentiality. So I didn't have to take it to anyone else. The other is to find an attorney or two, even if they charge you, that they're willing to talk with you about the legal aspects of decision making. So there have been times in my career, even before I discovered legal nursing, that I've reached out to say, I'm not comfortable with what this organization is asking me to do.
Right.
What are my rights from a legal perspective? I understand my standards of care. I understand my standards of practice, but where do I stand legally in this situation? And that has helped me.
Yeah.
Not to be afraid, number one, of them, but to also learn a little bit more about the law. And then how it applies to my practice. So a little backwards, they ask us, how does nursing apply to law, right? How do these standards apply in this case? But from the other perspective, we need to know how that law affects us.
Right. No, that's a really good discussion. We talk about that a lot. I think we just had a conversation like that in my own hospital yesterday regarding employment law, and their rights and it comes up quite a bit nowadays. And I come at it as more of a mentor. I've been doing it this a long time. Just nursing in general. I was in management. I was employing nursing, so I come from it as a little bit of a mentor. So I think that's why the discussion occurs often around me. But the legal side, and the first thing I think of is, it would be really great to have an employment lawyer, show up and have this conversation, and not me. They would be able to help, quite a bit better than I can. So,
well, there are many attorneys. There are many attorneys that will give you a free consultation too. But if you find one that is worth their weight in gold, that's willing to, even if it's $100, right, to have a good conversation with them, it is so valuable for your nursing and just making decisions around your license, because you are the only one responsible for that license. Right. So
no, totally. And you just gave me a great idea. And I don't know if those of you who are still working clinically, I work in the operating room. I'm only there 2 days a week, but I happen to be there on the days that we have these, staff meetings, and I'm asked to share things. But having an employment attorney come in and just for a staff meeting to discuss, or even, it doesn't even need to be an employment attorney. It can be any attorney, just to discuss the legal side of whatever the topic is, I think would be very valuable to nurses. Yeah.
Right. And then the legal nurse is also valuable. So if you think about that as well, every organization should have legal nurses in their, whether they're contracting them or whether they're hired, they should be in there helping them oversight clinical practice.
Yeah.
And identifying issues and helping them change those policies. And so there's a lot of value there too in each and every one of us.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. So speaking of attorneys, and we mentioned the conference, can you share a little bit about how your conference came about, how long it's been around, and really just kind of the background of it?
I can. This is a conference that I have been dreaming about for quite some time. How to bridge the medical legal worlds in a way that isn't just about me, myself, and I, if that makes sense. So when we go to conferences, we're often there to just gain what we need and we take off. And my vision for this conference is that we're truly creating an environment where these disciplines are coming together to learn more from each other. From the attorney perspective, what do I need to know about healthcare? What do I need? Who are my resources? Who can I reach out to? What can I gain from that? From legal nurses are always about where am I going to get my next client? But really more importantly, how do I build a relationship that I can actually serve as a resource? And maybe that person won't become a client, but in the long run, as I'm offering resources and I become a conduit between two disciplines, I build those relationships that build a long sustaining opportunity in legal nursing. And then from the healthcare perspective, healthcare executives, healthcare providers, physicians, nurses, anyone that really wants to see how our care at the bedside impacts patient care and what can they take away to immediately implement on a quality level. How do I take from what I'm learning and make a change to improve an outcome, whether that be with their staff, their culture, with the patient directly? So bringing all of that together into an environment where the level of change is much more significant because that environment creates the opportunity for those relationships to naturally happen. So I have been working on that for a while. And then I met an attorney who said, really, I posted it the other day, Jaimee, we really need to have an environment where we can learn about these things. We can meet healthcare providers. We can learn about different cases, standards of care, standards of practice. In law school, we only learn law. We don't learn medicine.
Yep.
And we have to do that on the fly. And then we're left to try to figure out who is it that we have to contact to help us. And so that fueled my eagerness to, jump off the cliff. And when I say jump off the cliff, for those that have done this, like you've done it with your podcast and other things, you're taking a big risk. These activities, number one, they're not cheap. To create the environment that you want, to make sure you have the right people in attendance. And I just made it happen. I said, okay, it either has to pass or I just need to go for it. And I went for it.
Right.
And I am so happy I went for it. Last year's conference was the inaugural conference. We filled every seat. Every seat was full. I did cap the conference because I do have some background in putting conferences together I've been on the committee for AALNC. Prior to that, I have helped put on conferences. Well, it started as a student with the Student Nurses Association. And then again, in my position with Sigma Theta Tau. And, so I've had the opportunity to work with teams. This was my first one to do out of my business.
Right.
So I had to get my name out there. I had to create the environment. It was so, I know I'm biased on this, but I have not come down from the euphoric feeling that I left with at that conference. And those that I talk with also talk very positively about it. I did not receive a single complaint in the, other than what you expect, right? I didn't hear this, or I wish this presenter would have talked more about that. But the conference itself was, in my mind, next to perfect. So I took it from there and said, okay, we're going into year 2. And I moved it to Detroit. And I really don't know how we're going to top this year's conference. This year's conference, I have been able to work with some of the best in legal practice, legal nursing practice. We have a really nice mix of attorneys who are presenting, of physicians, of legal nurses, and they are at the top of their game in the legal, medical legal world. And so just to be able to have them on stage, to be able to bring their message, to be able to walk through their cases, and to have an audience that is so mixed, to me is, I'm just over the top excited to share it with everyone. One of the best examples I can give from last year's conference, we had a group of attorneys that were small group, and because it was a small cap, We had a little group of attorneys that was on one side of the room, and we had a hospital executive team on the other side of the room. And during one of our presenters' presentation, he opened it up for discussion.
Mm-hmm.
And the audience, I've never seen an audience like this either.
Mm-hmm.
People were so eager to get the microphone and to ask questions. And all of a sudden, the healthcare executives began to talk with the attorneys.
Mm-hmm.
And the gap narrowed.
Sure.
And it became more comfortable. And eventually that gap closed. And I know for a fact that those attorneys walked away with a deeper understanding of the challenges in healthcare that affect their cases.
Mm-hmm.
But the executives on that team reported back to me that they actually went back to their healthcare system and changed a policy based on that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, that's the magic. That is the power. And this year we're bringing in 2 keynote speakers.
Mm-hmm.
So the first keynote will kick off the event, and the focus will be on standards of care and practice, how they differ, and then how they're applied in casework. I had a lot of feedback from attorneys asking, what is the difference between a standard of care and standard of practice, and how do they apply? What are we looking at? And so the theme will be threaded throughout. We have the unveiling of a documentary that is titled Suck It Up, Buttercup. This documentary is an exposure of the strained healthcare system and its impact that it has both in the legal world and in the healthcare world. So the individuals being that this group is interviewing is a mix of legal and healthcare professionals. I don't want to give too much because outside of the trailer, if you go to the attorneysconference.com, you can see the trailer, watch the trailer. It's going to be a very powerful, moving experience. But then we are closing it. A lot of times we leave conferences with all these great notes and great ideas, and we walk out that door, and a week later, we're like, what was that again?
Right.
Well, the purpose of having a second keynote, a closing keynote, is to bring that entire conference together so that people can actually take those takeaways and do something purposeful with them. Right. So we're ready. We're ready for everybody. We really are.
I did see all the excitement after your first one, and it does feel like the wave has been, you've been riding that wave ever since, which is great. It's a great way to go into the next one,
We are riding that wave. And one of the benefits, and I know you've probably experienced this if you've been to a conference where you get there, you don't know where to eat. There's some food, but not enough food. You're paying $40 for a hamburger. That is another vision for this conference, is that all-inclusive rate. So the conference itself includes 17 CEs for nurses. UpVision is an approved provider of nursing education through the Board of Nursing in California. And every meal, every snack, all non-alcoholic beverages, that's all covered in that conference fee. So you can really just come and enjoy and just know those needs will be taken care of. If you don't want those to be taken care of, you can still do your own thing. But, it's there. You don't have the pressure of trying to figure all that out.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Okay, so you mentioned your website, but I would love for you to mention it again, where those that are interested in attending your conference, the date of the conference, and how they can find more information on it.
All right. So the date of the conference is August 12 through 14, 2025. It's being held at the Historic Garden Theater in Detroit, Michigan. That was an intentional location. For anyone asking why, you'll understand why when you're in the room. And what else did you ask? You can go to attorneysconference.com. So attorneysconference.com. Take the time to explore. Go right up to the top. It says 2025 conference. Click on it. The drop down. You can see our amazing speakers, our venue, our hotel, who has been fabulous. You don't have to spend a dime on transportation other than what it costs you to get there. Everything back and forth is all covered by the hotel and their shuttles. We have the Q line, which is Detroit Public Transportation, and the People Mover to move you from district to district so you can see the city easily. So we've tried to make it as accommodating and as cost conscious as possible.
I love that. I love that. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. I really love getting to know your story, the background, and how you landed where you are today, and seeing the excitement of, you can see it on your face. You can see that this is where you're supposed to be and this is your passion and you're super excited about it. And I think that carries through. Obviously, it carries through our conversation. And I know that after people listen to this podcast, you'll have an influx of messages probably asking you more information. That's usually what happens. After these episodes. I haven't found one person that said that they did not get messages after their episode aired. So I'm sure you will. But I appreciate you spending your time with me. And do you have any advice for last piece of advice for legal nurses that are just getting started? Because I do know that there are a lot of listeners to this podcast that are just getting their feet wet, or they've heard about this legal nurse side. What would be your last bit of advice on how to get started? What should they do?
Oh my goodness. Well, Anna, first I want to thank you for inviting me to be with you today. I've enjoyed it as well, and I hope that we're making a connection that will last a lifetime. To all of the new LNCs out there, I think my very first word of advice is to stop listening to those that tell you that you're going to make 6 figures in 5 minutes. It doesn't happen. You have to truly have a passion for this. So understand, and if you need to take the time to figure that out before you hang your shingle, do it. Why is it that you want this job? Why is it that you want this career path? Why is it that you want this business? And why do you want the relationships with attorneys? That is really important to understand before you even begin. So that why helps generate more excitement. There isn't one wrong why. It could be because you want to be the sole provider for your family, or you need to be. It could be because you want extra spending money. It could be like me, because you just want to make a difference and that's your passion. So all of those things are right. Just understand it, because that why is what will fuel you every single day to get out of bed. You will face 1,000 no's before you get one yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
And every time you begin to grow, you have a new challenge. I was just talking today with my marketing person, my marketing team, and I said to him, I feel like I'm banging my head against the wall again. I just feel like it's banging and banging and banging. And he laughed. He said, this is it. 90% of your role is marketing.
Yep.
It is what it is. People have to know you. They have to get to know you. It is marketing, and that will never stop.
Right.
And if you don't understand your why, you will stop.
Yeah. Exactly.
You will stop, because you begin to think, again, here I am in another nursing role, getting burnt out, promised all of this, and it's not happening. So my second word of advice is to stop giving it for free. We are nurses, and you have the right to earn your living. Right. You have the right to support your family. As nurses, we tend to be a little more on the codependent side, and we have deeper empathy. So when we hear that somebody is in need, oftentimes in order to sell ourselves, I see from others, I'll do it for you for free. No, you won't. Stop that, because it doesn't help you meet your end goal, right? And if you are good enough, you're going to be just fine. You're going to be just fine. Don't be scared of that. So the other part is learning how to be a money manager. Learning how to be business minded in a world that we're not comfortable in. That's really important. So, and any other pieces of advice, I have a ton of them. Find a mentor.
Yeah.
Find a mentor, and not just one. Find a legal nurse mentor. Find a business mentor who's not a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
Find a marketing mentor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. So, and
Totally
don't
agree.
be afraid to rely on them a lot.
Yeah, I love that.
So,
I love that. And I love the fact that you shared that, like, it really does come down to the why. And I think that a lot of times, from what I've seen in this, nurses jumping into this, that whole why piece is missing. So I love the fact that, and I think that it's typically an escape from banging their head against the wall, doing what they're doing now.
Right.
Is this an escape for me? Well, it has to be, like you said, it has to be more than that. There has to be a reason why you're getting up in the morning. And to understand that is key.
Absolutely.
Because you can jump and 2 months later, you're still going to be chasing that next thing. So
absolutely.
I totally agree with you on finding that why, and then deciding if it's worth it.
Right.
Is my why really a match to this?
Right.
It's not just, like you said, it's not a quick fix. It's not, I'm going to replace my nursing salary tomorrow. It doesn't work like that.
No, it does not.
No, it does not.
No, it does not.
It takes time and effort. And if your why is in alignment with that, then go right ahead. But I think that you're right. You're absolutely right in understanding that first. And I think that finding a mentor to even help you understand your why or talk it through is important.
Right.
Because we as nurses don't really have a whole lot of nurses that sit and think about their why, So finding someone, so I'll add to that, finding a mentor to discuss the why. If you're stuck with, finding your why, reach out to someone. I mean, that's the stuff that I love to talk to people about.
Mm-hmm.
In the past, before I even went down this road, friends, close friends, we would sit. I play hockey, like I said earlier. We would sit in the locker room late at night, and we would talk about our why. And I would just, ask my friends questions. And to this day, they're still finding their way. But it's those conversations that I think matter, and we just don't think about that until it's too late.
You're right. You're right. And the why will also fuel your answer. I don't know about you, but for me, I'm asked every day, first, what is a legal nurse and why did you become one?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so then you have it right there.
Yeah.
You understand. And every time those questions are asked, you should have a feeling of passion bubbling up. Absolutely. You should have, it shouldn't be a drudgery. Well, it's because I left a dead end job or burnt out at the bedside.
I just needed to get out. Yeah.
This, that's not a reason to go. It's not a reason to go. So especially with the amount of work involved.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's a really good point. Okay, well, thank you again much for spending your time with me and explaining things a little bit further and really understanding why you are putting on this conference and what it means to you. So I think that I appreciate hearing that story, and I know that I will not be the only one. So I thank you again for your time.
Yes.
And
can I let people know how to reach me if they want to
Absolutely,
ask
please do.
Jaimee, Jaimee at upvisionconsulting.com.
Perfect. And that will be in the show notes as well. So they'll be able to click on that.
Wonderful.
Perfect. Thank you
Great.
for sharing that.
You're welcome.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us in this fun conversation on the Limitless Legal Nurse Consulting podcast. I hope you found this episode as inspiring and empowering as I always do. And I hope that you share this episode with your friends. If you enjoyed it, I would love it if you could leave us a review or comment, as I would love to share them in the future episodes. Or hop on over into my DMs and send me a quick message. I can be found on Instagram at anna.b.gray, on my website at limitlesslnc.com, and over on LinkedIn at anna.gray. And I want you to remember, you are limitless. Until next time.